have encountered great leaders who mastered the art of achievement that lacked personal fulfillment.
So I reached a point in my career where I had fallen out of love with my work. Superficially, my life was good.
A lot of people know you from The Matrix, right?
I think it's not so coincidental. In awe of the unfoldment of my own life and looking at all of those things that could appear to be coincidental, and understanding that there's a journey there that is beyond me.
You must not be driven by your anxieties, your frustrations, your concerns, and not to be influenced by your peers, so switch off the phone, not to be influenced by your professors, not to be influenced by your parents or the social pressures. Spend some time with yourself and see. I'm asking you a simple question.
You were finding external success, but internally there were challenges.
I think the greatest relationship that you could ever have is with yourself. And taking time to be in the presence of yourself and ask yourself important questions like, are you happy? Who am I? And then I had to show up for people and look a certain way and act a certain way, and that wasn't me.
The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. You've got to find what you love, and that is as true for work as it is for your lovers.
I think you should chase what energizes you. Everyone talks about passion, legacy, purpose, blah, 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 blah. The one word to pay attention to is energy.
Are you passionate about what you're doing? Do you wake up each day excited about the tasks ahead and go to sleep each night feeling like you've contributed to the world in a way only you can? The first step on our journey together is discovering your passion, uncovering the innate gifts and talent you were born with. Hopefully, you're already aware that you have gifts and talents, even if you don't yet know what they are. But if you're saying, look, Micheline, I don't know that I have any gifts or talents, and by the way, this is what I hear a lot in my workshops, and I thought it would be just emerging leaders or young leaders, but no, accomplished leaders tell me this: I don't know that I was born with any talent or gifts. Then I'm gonna tell you, you're in for a real treat, because this is going to be super eye-opening for you. What is the difference between the things we enjoy versus the innate passion? We all have many passions in life. Things we enjoy, things that fascinate us, things we're drawn to, things we want to learn about. Sometimes our passions develop as we grow mature and learn new things. Our innate passion is different from the many joys we develop in life. Though it could manifest itself through those passions and activities that we happily engage in and love doing, but it's slightly distinct and different. Whenever we are inspired about something we are doing, creating, or contributing to the world, our consciousness expands and latent forces within us come alive. Focusing these forces into a higher vision gives meaning to our actions. The key is to make use of the innate passion that we are born with.
So I reached a point in my career where I had fallen out of love with my work. Superficially, my life was good. You know, I owned my own business. We had amazing clients. We did amazing work.
Doing what? What was?
I had a
business?
marketing consultancy.
Yeah.
In New York, and I didn't want to wake up and do it anymore. I was done.
And was that a sudden realization or a dawning one?
I mean, you know, these things always feel sudden, but they've been, you know, that's a slow boiling frog until you realize the water's boiling. So the answer is, who knows? It showed up, you know? Like, how long does it take to feel depressed? I don't know. Yeah. And I was deeply embarrassed, feeling bad because I shouldn't. Look look what I'm doing. Look at the things I'm getting to do. Like, I shouldn't be, depressed or, not want to go to work. And so I kept all those negative feelings to myself, which really is stupid. And the feelings got darker and darker and darker, and they feed on themselves. And that's the problem with keeping negative feelings to yourself. They fester and grow. And it got to the point where I was in really a dark place. But all of my energy went into pretending that I was happier, more in control, and more successful than I really felt. So nobody knew. Okay. It wasn't until a very dear friend of mine came to me and said, there's something wrong. There's something different. I don't know what it is, but something's off. And for whatever reason, I opened up and came clean. And it was cathartic. It was a weight lifted off my shoulders. And all of that energy that went into lying, hiding, and faking every day, I now had new energy, renewed energy to actually find a solution. I'll spare you the long, drawn-out story, but I had already articulated this idea of the why and the golden circle to explain why some marketing worked and some marketing didn't. Okay. And it was the discovery of the human brain, the limbic brain and the neocortex, which I learned at a dinner party. I was sitting next to somebody who their dad was a neuroscientist. I mean, it was just like polite conversation, and like bells started going off. And I realized it didn't explain why marketing worked. It explained why people do what they do. And I realized this was my problem. I knew what I did. I knew how I did it, but I couldn't tell you why. That's what I needed to find. And I couldn't do it for myself. And so I brought in an outsider who had objectivity and took me through some sort of version of his process and mine. That really helped. But the more important thing was I figured out how to help my friends find their why.
Sure.
And that's what I started doing. I started helping my friends find their why.
So, step 1. Let's start with a quick assessment. Because to get where you want to go, it's useful to first acknowledge where you are. So let's assess your current alignment with passion and purpose in your life. Where are you today? So grab your notebook and just rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10. 1 being the mostly false and 10 being the mostly true. And then at the end, we'll calculate your score together. So rate yourself right now to this following statement. I have a particular talent that is distinguished and unique to me. If mostly false, it's 1. Mostly true is 10. I have created my career and my business around my passion. Mostly false 1, mostly true 10. I know what my purpose is in my life, and I integrated in my professional endeavor. Mostly false 1, mostly true 10. I have created a purpose-driven career or business to contribute to and impact others. I have a clear vision and intention for my life and for my future. I have a personal mission statement that I live by. If you have one and you live by your mission statement, you're at a 10. If you haven't created one in your life, a mission statement yet, personal mission statement, put one. I am known to be an expert in my field. If everybody knows you that you're the expert in that field, write 10. If you're an expert in a field that no one knows about, write 1. I devote time to practice my passion on a daily basis. Even if you don't work in your passion, or your passion is not what you do for a living, but you practice it on a side, you rate yourself from 1 to 10. If you have a passion that you've neglected, it's in your forgotten drawer, write 0 or 1. I have a coach or a mentor who helps me on a regular basis. If you have one, a dedicated one, and you use that coach on a regular basis, you know how much you use that coach, then you rate yourself from 0 to 10 if you want, or 1 to 10. I consistently align my actions with my vision. If every time, I'm not saying like, okay, I'm going to drink water or eat, is it aligned with my vision? Except if I want to lose weight or to get healthy, that would be appropriate. But we're talking here about actions that matter, like actions during the day, actions during a project or something that takes time. If you constantly think, is this that I'm spending so much time on this project, is it aligned with my vision? Then rate yourself. If you take actions and projects that have nothing to do with your vision, and your vision could be aligned and should be aligned with your vision at work, probably your vision at work is to become successful in order to carry on with your passion. So if you want to be successful at work and you have a mission and a vision for your work, and that action or project that is coming your way has nothing to do with that vision or focus, but yet you feel that you're constantly pulled into taking that as a project, and then this is distracting you from your vision, rate yourself as low on that scale. So let's calculate your score and see how did you do here. Add your scores now. The maximum, by the way, is 100. If you are between 90 and 100, congrats for being ahead. But you can still glean from the lesson ahead and lean even more into your passion in most of your undertakings. You will be able to set an example for people around you and coach them to connect and align with their inner genius. If you are below 30 points, that's okay. Please don't be hard on yourself. Like many others, you may feel trapped in a career or stuck within a business you did not consciously choose. Perhaps it was someone else's idea. Maybe you felt you had to carry on the family business. Maybe you've attained your goal, but are no longer sure you love your career. And that is perfect. You're where you're supposed to be. Many of us hover between 60 and 90, depending on whether our actions and goals are at the service of that inner spark that makes us happy. It also depends on whether we think our passion is kind of an over-the-top dream that is not attainable or is completely doable. I recommend that you rate yourself again after you complete this lesson to measure your progress. Many times we find that after you become aware of what we're talking about, although the first score is the one that indicates where you are, but maybe during just this assessment, something shifted for you and you made a decision, an unconscious decision that will become conscious during the course of our lessons together and our learning these tools. The premise of this program and my work as a whole is that when you lean into your passion, you become happy. The way I became, the way many other people became, many participants have become, and many people who have leaned into their passion and wrote books about it or talked about it have done. When you start listening to what the universe is calling you for, you start tapping into the energy and momentum, but that energy and momentum is from your future, because the universe is calling you from a point that may not have existed for you in the past. And if you go back to the past, maybe you will be repeating the past. But when you're tapping into that energy, it's always coming from your future.
A lot of people know you from The Matrix, right? Which was, 15 years ago when that came out? Or 1999, I think, 2000?
Yep.
And that was kind of like, it was such a huge thing. It's amazing that you're talking about all the things that we were talking about before, about really this consciousness and this awareness, that's really what you started in your career that made it big, is this consciousness and awareness. And now it's really what you're doing with your work, working with mothers, working with other women, about bringing this to life, right?
Yeah, I think it's not so coincidental.
Really?
And I'm in awe of the unfoldment of my own life and looking at all of those things that could appear to be coincidental, and understanding that there's a journey there that is beyond me, and I'm beyond grateful for getting to play like that role and having that impact, and being a part of something that had that much of an impact on people.
Still today, right?
Yeah, and it's the consciousness of it is so deep and layered. And I remember at the time that I didn't at all understand the depth of it. I was, on a spiritual journey. I understood the layers of consciousness in it, but I didn't understand it at all from an intellectual point of view. Yeah. The directors and the writers that created it, they very smart people and really brilliant.
I mean, it's like to come up with a script like that.
Totally brilliant. And I remember I had a rock at my door. In fact, I still have it. It's in my office, and it said, "Believe." And I remember thinking about Trinity, and I understood her heart completely. I'm not a very intellectual person. Like I completely come from instinct and intuition and my heart. And I understood her that way. That was my way in. And I always felt like she was the heart of the three of them, Morpheus, Neo, and Trinity. And I had the greatest time playing her and bringing her to life and being a part of that.
What an experience.
Yeah.
I mean, was life just completely changed after that? Because before you were working and you were a consistent actor, right? And you were a model before that. But then that really kind of like took it to a whole nother level.
It did.
Everyone watched the movie, right?
Yeah. I mean, it was one of those moments where I remember shortly before getting it, where I thought, I'm going to be turning 30 and maybe I'll never be in movies. Maybe I'll just have this mediocre television career. And that's like better than most people.
Most people don't get that.
Most people don't ever get that. I make a living as an actor. I understood how big that was. I had a lot of friends who were actors, and most of us weren't making a living as an actor. So I understood. I bought a house as an actor. Right. I was paying my bills as an actor.
You weren't waiting tables.
Yeah, and it wasn't that far off, but I was making a living.
Some months where you're like, well, maybe I need to go get a second job, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. In fact,
you're never certain as an actor.
In fact, after I shot The Matrix, that year of shooting The Matrix, I wasn't sure if I was going to need to wait tables in between it and coming out.
No,
I wasn't sure. And I thought to myself,
was it not that big of a paid gig, or
no? It was like nobody, right?
So they gave you, so you didn't get a big like Keanu didn't.
No, I was. It was. I would have done it for free, and they all know that, right? When they're making your deals. But I remember thinking, I got offered a few things before it came out, and things for like a lot of money, but they weren't great. And I had to trust that the movie, I didn't know if the movie was going to be big. I didn't know if my career was going to take off or not. And I just had to know that I had to trust and really get into that place of trusting that.
Wow.
And
so you turned down bigger paying jobs
big time.
A potential of could potentially be a bust.
Totally.
Who knows if the movie's going to do well or
Totally.
not, right? These guys weren't like, were they known directors or producers before?
They had done like a movie that had done well, but there was
But who knows?
I had no idea.
It was a weird concept. It was like
so many people didn't understand what the heck we were doing, and I had to believe, and I hadn't seen like a piece of it. I didn't know what it even looked like, and I remember getting one offer in particular that was quite big. I'd never seen an offer like that.
Like a TV deal? Or
no, it was a movie thing, but it wasn't in alignment with like what I was about.
Right,
so truth. I couldn't say yes to just the money.
Yeah, that's the
couldn't
worst.
do it, and I'm glad I didn't do it. You know, I've never done that.
Right.
So it wasn't really that hard of a decision. And if I had to wait tables, I would have waited tables. You know what? I loved waiting tables. I got to tell you, I waited tables. I was very good at it. I almost managed restaurants when I was like 18 years old in Vancouver. I was the waitress that people would bring their families and I would hold their kids while they ate dinner, and their children would bring me photographs that they had drawn.
Wow.
And I loved being of service, and I loved serving people food, and I loved being in the energy of a restaurant. I thought that's what I was going to do as a career, was perhaps manage. And, you know, I was going up the ranks in the restaurant chain that I worked at pretty fast because I was good with people and I loved what I did and I enjoyed it. Yeah. And then I remembered, a friend of mine came in, and I remembered that I had a dream of being an actress. And I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it because I'd never seen anyone do it before. I didn't know anyone. I mean, Michael J. Fox had gone to my elementary school.
Really?
Although I didn't.
He's Canadian, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And although I didn't know him, he was like a light for me. That someone who walked in the same school that I went to was able to make that. And it would just seem so far away. And I just rekindled that idea that I had that dream and it lived within me. And sure, I could go into restaurant business and probably do really well at it and really enjoy it, but that I had this deep yearning to be an artist and to be an actress and to tell stories and to do that. And I went and I studied. I came here to Pasadena to go to school for a year. And I had a job to pay for that. I mean, it really was a hard thing to do. I went to school full time and had like 3 jobs or something.
How old are you at this time?
I think I was 18 or 19.
Sure.
That's young. And then I traveled and I did some modeling, and that was really an incredibly eye-opening experience for me. And then I moved home to Vancouver after I'd been in Japan, I'd been in Spain, I'd been in a few different places in Belgium, and I came home and I thought, okay, I'll try to be an actress here in Vancouver. Mm-hmm. And after a few days, I started to feel kind of blue. And my mom was like, that's not like you. I normally have quite a...
Sad, you mean?
Yeah.
Blue sad,
blue as in sad. You don't say that?
No, I just didn't know if you were like...
Is that a girl thing?
Sick or...
No, I felt kind of sad and not very turned on energetically for what was happening in my life. I mean, I'd literally been home like a few days.
Wow.
I probably needed to ride it out a little bit. But I remembered, like, since I was a child, I saw myself living here.
Wow.
Driving on the PCH, wearing all white, which is interesting because now I'm a Kundalini yoga teacher and
wearing all white,
where I wear all white all the time. I live right off of that PCH, and I envisioned that since I was a child.
Wow!
I envisioned the life that I have since I was a child. When we talk about visualization and manifestation, those were naturally within me since I was a little kid. I was making vision boards when I was 7 and 8 years old.
Did you know what you were doing? Or
I had no idea.
He was like, here's a dream. It'd be cool to do this.
I was meditating when I was a kid with other children and asking and going in a circle with them and having a love for yoga, which I didn't even know what yoga was. And I was just very tuned in, I guess, to some of those things that now I have such a great love for.
Yeah.
And I can see the seeds, and they weren't planted there by other people.
They were not.
in me. No, they weren't.
You didn't see it on TV or movies?
Well,
or?
I could have seen a lot of what
Right,
my
right.
career was in television, absolutely, because I grew up watching a lot of television.
So was the inspiration
Probably.
maybe came from the things you saw in Hollywood or whatever, right?
Absolutely.
You saw the PCH.
Exactly.
On
How
a
would
TV
I have known
show
that?
or
Yes. Yeah.
Baywatch or something.
Probably.
Right?
I think we're talking way pre-Baywatch.
Right,
We're
right.
talking Three's Company. We're
For sure,
talking
sure.
Happy Days. We're talking, all those shows. And I remember just as a family, we would go to Seattle once a year. And to go across the border into the United States of
huge,
America
huh?
was huge. And I could get all the candy and the chocolate that I saw in the commercials.
Right.
Because we didn't have that stuff. It was a big deal.
You had the fake M&Ms, not the real ones.
I don't
right?
know.
Yeah,
We had different stuff, but I remember thinking America had something that
you wanted.
that I wanted. And although I can see now that it's not necessarily true, Canada, America, I mean,
Sure.
there's so many great qualities in both countries, but I was definitely attracted to the vibration of the United States of America for me as a wanting to be an actress and stuff.
Over the years, and I'm sure you're like me, in both my business and personal life, I have encountered great leaders who mastered the art of achievement but lacked personal fulfillment. Some have retired, some have reached retirement age, having accumulated significant wealth, yet they are not satisfied with their life, as if something is missing, despite the many things they can afford. Many amazingly smart individuals had big dreams, yet were not able to attain them. Others made people around them successful. They were second best, but never dared to leap out on their own to pursue their own dreams. The other day, I had dinner with one good friend. Actually, she started following me and was one of my students in one of the workshops. And we became friends around the year because I was coaching her. And she really said that at the age of 35, I had the proposal for my dream job. I always wanted that global position. And I got it. And in a split of a moment, I declined it. And she said, I declined it because I said, I'm 35, I need to settle down. I need to find a partner in my life. So I declined it. Unfortunately, she's 55 today. And after 20 years, she has not still found her special one. How many people you know around you who declined that dream job, that dream vision, because they thought that this will stop them from attaining something else? What about saying yes to those dreams and finding a way to do both? What about that? Which of those categories do you fit into? Or are you in yet another category, one of your own? Take a moment, think about it, and write it down. I'm suspecting that since you're here, that you are looking for more fulfillment in one area of your life, being your personal life, your career, or your business. So are you ready to get to the next level? This time, you're feeling motivated and inspired from a different place? Is your soul ready for a new level of truly deep fulfillment never felt before?
You were finding external success, but internally there were challenges. And then, did I read this correctly, that you took a 6-month sabbatical to really kind of step back and reassess?
I think the greatest relationship that you could ever have is with yourself. And taking time to be in the presence of yourself and ask yourself important questions like, are you happy? Who am I? And instead of getting up and getting on your cell phone and getting distracted, Sit with your triple filtered water or a glass of wine or whatever you're into, JJ, but whatever you're into. Almond milk, whatever it is. Gluten-free bread and lactose-free cheese, whatever you're into. Sit down and answer the question without being distracted. The contemplation process is the building process neurologically. And for me, I was just a guy. I'm a guy who loves God. I'm a guy who loves the divine. I'm the guy who loves mystery. I'm the guy who just never stops dovetailing information. That's just me. And I never really planned on doing any of this. I mean, my theories on life is make it up as you go along and take the value and run. And What the Bleep became a sensation, and all of a sudden I went from a normal guy to being a rock star. And I was traveling around the world and doing conferences all over the place, and I reached this point where I realized that I wasn't living the work. And that really bothered me. I was disturbed by that. I was really uncomfortable. And when you get uncomfortable and nothing's making that discomfort go away, it's time to evolve. It's time to make a different choice. And I clearly heard in my head during one meditation, stop making the same choices and pause. I didn't know what that meant, except that I knew that I was relying on all of this external stimulation to build an identity that I really wasn't. And then I had to show up for people and look a certain way and act a certain way, and that wasn't me. And it got disturbing for me. And I had this gap between the way I appeared and the way I really was. And I didn't make time for myself and make time to be the example. I mean, my motive is always be the example of everything that I teach. If I'm not, I shouldn't be up here. I shouldn't be leading in my clinic if I don't live those principles myself, if I don't live my life that way. And so, at the height of my popularity, I disappeared. I canceled all my events. My friends thought I was on crack or something. They thought I lost my mind. Because you know what? They were saying you could make so much money. And I said, I know how to make money. I really don't care about money. I really don't care. I care about how happy I'm going to be with myself. And I broke from the world for 6 months and retreated. And I really decided that if I presented myself back to the world, that I wasn't going to be seduced by it in the same way. That I really wanted to be the example of everything that I taught, and I wanted to lead events in a way that empowered people. I never wanted it to be about me. I want it to be about you. I want you to have the realization that you're the creator of your life. And so 6 months of just detoxing from all of that arousal, all that stimulation, and pretty much lighting myself on fire and hoping that the phoenix would rise, and those 6 months were, again, that period of where you're really questioning who you are and if it's valuable for you. And I remembered that my decision was to go out and if I was ever able to walk again, I'd spend the rest of my life studying the mind-body connection and mind over matter. That's the deal that I had with myself. So I stepped back out into the world with a different person. I got beyond all of that stuff that so many people get distracted by. And for me, it was a defining moment that I just said, if I could close the gap between how I appear and who I really am, I'm free. I could be anybody I want, and I could be happy with myself. And I think when we're truly happy with ourselves, we're happy with others. And that people that are unhappy with themselves, they punish other people so they can feel as unhappy as they are. And I didn't want to have happiness be dependent on anyone or anything. I wanted to have that sense of wholeness where I felt good about me, and I had to make time to do the work, and I have to make time for myself. I have to enjoy the presence of myself and ask myself, what do you know? At what point do you stop believing that you create your reality? What is that point? What is that chronic disbelief that you have? What is that persistent belief that says that's the end? It's like when things go really well, you create it, and when they don't, you don't. That doesn't work that way. So I just wanted to revive my model to a certain degree and then get back into the practical application so that I actually could be the example for everybody. So that's why I did it.
One thing that I love that you shared so much, and I think this is so relevant for business owners and people that create content and that are interested in sharing a message with others, is there is a persistent fear, especially where we are right now in terms of social media, right? And how much information is out there and how many people can kind of speak back and talk back. And you shared that you used to be concerned about folks who would criticize you and calling your work pseudoscience, and that at a certain point early on in your journey, you would write with the critics in mind. I've actually done that in my work too, where I can hear what people are going to say, and then so my creativity starts leaning towards those people. And then I love that you wrote at a certain point, you were done with that. I wanted to know if you could talk us through that evolution in thinking, because I think as creators, writing for the critics or having the negativity bias continue pull us in that direction, or as we're creating our own podcasts or our own material. I see a lot of heads nodding in this audience, so I was wondering if you could speak to that.
God, I think if you really want to be a leader, you should study great leaders, and I think all great leaders in history were uncompromising. I just don't care if they did it for a good effect or a bad effect. They just were uncompromising to their vision. And when you're young and you write your first book and you're writing that book and you're detailed and specific about making sure you cross all your T's and dot all your I's and your references are all in place, and you want to go a little further for that person who's in the back of the room or that person who's the critic that's going to judge your work. And I think it's a healthy place to start because it creates a little rigor. And then I just had a lot of people that hated me, and I don't know what I ever did to them. And I had to really sit down with myself and say, do you think that person's ever going to like you, Joe Dispenza? They're never going to like you anyway, so forget them. There's plenty of people that do want to hear you. And then when I took my attention off those people, I started getting happier. And then when we started seeing the results that were taking place, I could care less what they said about me. I could care less. But I do want to say something about that that's really important, because after What the Bleep Do We Know, I was invited to universities all over the United States, and I was with some of those people in the movie, and they were so excited. Oh, we're going to be with the university. And I'd walk on the stage, I'd see the quantum physicists, I'd see the department head of medicine there. I said, hang on, this is going to be an ambush. I said, what are you talking about? They're going to ambush us. They had PowerPoint presentations, just trying to prove everything wrong. And I tell you, it was my greatest moments. We are defined by our adversity. And I said, I'm going to turn this whole audience around. I don't care how long it takes. Their intention was to disprove. That was what they wanted to do. And it caused me to really look to see what I knew. And I remember the end of this one conference, this little thing we did in a university. The people were yelling at the scientists saying, hey, we don't want to hear you any longer. And he said, well, I'm closing this place down because we got to go. And the janitor in the back of the room said, I'll stay. And I knew in that moment that people wanted to be informed and empowered. Because knowledge is power, but knowledge about yourself is self-empowerment. And so then it shifted in that point where all of a sudden I just decided that I really didn't care. I really don't care what people say about me. I really don't care. I didn't even look. I mean, I've never even been on my YouTube thing. They were asking me, or social media. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy. I'm the guy that really is interested in delivering a message better each time that we are interacting with people or seeing the feedback in my life that's showing me that telling somebody backstage, I mean, my belief is challenged all the time. Like, somebody grew their thyroid back just recently, and I was on camera when they told me that, and I was like, what? Like, what do you mean they grew their thyroid back? That's not possible. And she had her thyroid completely removed. They cut the thing out, and then she was taking her medication, and she was getting sick, and she went to the doctor. All our values were normal. All her thyroid hormones were normal. They imaged her throat, and she had a thyroid there. And I was bothered by that. I said, I want to see the scans. I don't believe it, and I have to change my belief. I mean, how far down the rabbit hole do you want to go? I am not going to argue with people any longer about whether this works or not. I already know it does. I just want to give people the opportunity to experience it. That's all.
So I think one of the other things that is a challenge, and it can be a challenge for people like us who care deeply about the integrity of our work, whatever our craft is, whatever we're focused on. And we also care deeply about the success of the mission and how that kind of comes to life in the business itself, and growing a team and leading. So I'm curious, Dr. Joe, if at various points in your journey, have you ever experienced challenges in the time it takes to keep pushing and discovering the new aspects of the craft, because you're always evolving, and having the team evolve and grow, and having the mission get out there? And if you could speak to any of the ways that you've navigated those.
Gosh, now I'm speaking from my present state of ignorance. I just want to say that. I think it's trial and error. I'm not a type of person that's afraid to fail. I really don't even see it as failure. I just see it as an opportunity to do it again, do it better. What do I need to change about myself to produce a different outcome? I think leadership and leading a team it takes great effort and great work, and you are all so mission driven, and mission motivation is the highest form of motivation. It's been studied. People who are duty motivated or mission motivated or have a purpose, a vision that's bigger than them, that is the reason they get up in the morning. And for me, it's always been that. I want to be a part of transformation. I want to witness that. I stood next to a woman who opened her eyes on the beach in Cancun, and she was able to see for the first time. I wanted to be there for that. I wanted to be there for that moment. I wanted to remember what's possible. So the mission is the highest form of motivation. The next form of motivation is called personal conviction motivation. And people who are personally convicted are the ones that say, I'm going to do this because I say that I'm going to do it. It's a high form of motivation, but it's not the highest form. People who have a mission naturally have personal conviction. The next form is called ethics or morality motivation. It's a little bit polarized. If you're good and bad, right and wrong. If you're bad, you want to be good. If you're good, you want to be bad. If you're, you know that game. It's not a very high form of motivation, but people can function that way in polarity. But people who truly have a mission, have personal conviction, will naturally have a sense of ethics and morality. The next form of motivation is self-aggrandizement motivation. Hey, look at me, I'm famous, I'm popular, or whatever. Not a very high form of motivation. People spend their whole life looking for that moment. But if you have the mission, if you have personal conviction and you stay with it, and you have a sense of morality and ethics, you will get the attention and the recognition that you need. By the way, the lowest form of motivation is money motivation. But if you follow the sequence, money always comes as a side effect. The most selfless to the most selfish. And so I have to remind myself every day of what my mission is, and it is to transform individuals in order to transform the world or transform the culture. And I have to make a lot of hard decisions every single day about 2024. I got to make a lot of hard decisions about which direction we're going to go, how we're going to do the science. I have to make a lot of hard decisions all the time, and I can't do any of this without my team. And how do you build a great team? For me, they have to share the same mission. They have to share the same vision. They got to share the same passion. But what are the components that keep them moving in that direction? Like the mission of going in a certain direction. What keeps them in that direction? It's just really two simple things. And one is called competence. You got to be really badass good at what you do. So good at what you do that you own it, that you've mastered it. If you have that level of competence with accountability, like you say you're going to do something and you do it, or you're asked to do something and you do it because you say you're going to do it. If you put those three things together, the mission, the competence, and accountability, I think that you have excellence in an individual, and you have trust amongst the culture. In other words, I don't have to look to see what you're doing because I know you're doing your job really well. Now, the person who can't balance those three things will be outstanding. They'll stand out, and someone will have to stop doing what they're doing and all of a sudden have to help that person. Now, that happens sometimes, but usually people can evolve and self-correct. And so for me personally, we have gone through so many stages of growth. I mean, we interact with hundreds of different countries around the world now. We have thousands and thousands of people in community, and it's not easy to be able to integrate and interact with the world in the proper way. And so for us, we have to keep learning. That if you're in emergency, if you're in stress, you're in survival, you can't learn. It's not a time to learn. No new information can enter the nervous system that isn't equal or relevant to the emotion that the person is experiencing. And you got to be able to teach your team how to shorten the refractory period of their own emotional reactions. If they can't self-regulate and control their emotions, there'll always be a gap in perception between the way things appear and the way things really are. And so many times you have this period of growth and you don't have the systems in place, the infrastructure to be able to handle that growth, and there's a breakdown that takes place. Me personally, I've never seen that as bad. I've just seen it as a blind spot. And so for me, we just keep hiring more people. And we hire experts, people that are really good at what they do, that get the message and are able to represent it. But along the way in making those hard decisions, I have listened to attorneys, I've listened to consultants, I've listened to experts, and a lot of times I just look at them and I say, no. I'm not gonna compromise myself. I will never do that.
Yeah.
I don't know what I'm gonna do, but I'm not gonna do that. And I usually say, surely there's a potential in the quantum field where this can change. And that to me becomes the experiment. I like the experiment to see if I can produce an effect in my life by changing something about myself. And so if you are mission-driven and you have something that you really have that is of value to people, you will never have to sell it. I have been at enough business conferences where I've heard people talk on backstage and I walk out and I go, God, I'm really sorry. I'm going to tell you to do the exact opposite because I don't believe in any of those gimmicks. I really don't believe in any of that. I think that if you're real, you tell people the truth and you have evidence-based stuff that can change people's lives and you can have them remember to make better choices in their life. The research shows once you start making good choices, you'll keep making more good choices. Keeping people in that place takes an enormous amount of energy and information. And the model that we're developing in terms of healthcare should never end because health is an ongoing process. Certainly, my own personal experience of what I understand health to be is very different than it was just a year ago. So knowledge and information to evolve our experience all the time, it's the precursor to the experience. So if I had dark nights of the soul in running my company, absolutely. Have I had people that we've had to let go of because of all kinds of reasons? Absolutely. But I'm not afraid to lose. I'm not afraid to fail. I just don't want to lose the lesson in the process. So it's a constant process of engagement, and I have to spend time alone to be able to answer those questions. I'm not going to rely on other people to do that. For me, it's important for me to get very clear on it, and sometimes it's a lonely process.
I think it's so important too, because in the world that we're in, and I've certainly experienced this myself, where you can kind of consult with experts, whether it's an attorney, it's someone who says, I am the best in the world at this, and they start giving you a piece of advice, and your gut just absolutely friggin' not. Exactly. No way in hell. And I think it's so important for all of us to support each other in that, because we are creating into the unknown and to do something super unique like what you've built and so incredibly transformational to be able to keep turning inside to hear that voice. It's critical.
Thank you.
See, there are two ways to approach your life. Either I want to do what I want to do, but you must understand what you want to do is just a thought that you generated, and it's not even yours, it's something that you pick up from around you. A whole lot of people today are deciding what to do depending upon what they will get out of it. What will I get? Will I get this kind of lifestyle? Will I get this kind of salary? Will I make this kind of money and lifestyle? This is what they're thinking of. This is a wrong way to approach, because you will have everything and you will have nothing in the end with life. The important thing is this. See, if you make yourself, first of all you must do this, you must not be driven by your anxieties, your frustrations, your concerns. You must take… When this question becomes a serious question in your life, you must take off at least 3 to 10 days, let's say, depending upon who you are. Some people may need 3 days, somebody may need more time. Let's say maximum 3 to 10 days range. And not to be influenced by your peers, so switch off the phone, not to be influenced by your professors, not to be influenced by your parents or the social pressures. Spend some time with yourself and see. I'm asking you a simple question. Are you a precious life? Your life, is it precious to you? Hello? If it's precious to you, What are you going to invest this precious life into is something that must concern you, isn't it? You must not do something because he's doing it. You must not do something because he's not doing it. This is not the way to decide things. You're investing your life. If this life is precious, you must see what is it that really matters to you. And you must do that. It doesn't matter, it pays, it doesn't pay. But believe me, if your heart is not in something, really, you will not do your best. Yes or no? If you don't do your best, how will great things happen to you? See, whether it is art, music, design, business, sport, spirituality, politics, it doesn't matter what it is. If you are not absolutely devoted to what you're doing, you will never do anything significant in your life. That's for 100%, I'm telling you. You may earn a living, but you will not do anything significant if you are not totally devoted to something. See, right now there are many examples, because they gave him a Bharat Ratna, I'm choosing him. Let's say Sachin Tendulkar. This man knows nothing except hitting a ball. He gets so devoted to hitting a ball, hitting a ball, hitting a ball, hitting a ball, and he hits it like nobody. Now he is Bharat Ratna. Yes or no? It is just devotion. You must talk to him and see privately. He is like, you talk about the ball, he will… He is so devoted to it, okay? It's his religion, it's his sacred stuff, it is everything to him, hitting that ball. His entire life he invests in one simple act, hitting a ball. Is it a big thing? But hitting a ball because of enormous devotion, just see what happens. Tremendous things happen, isn't it? So, the question is not about what you want to do. The question is just this: can you be devoted to this? Let's say you think in terms of today, if I invest my life, next 25 years, can I be devoted to what I'm doing right now? Will this matter to me? Will I feel fulfilled if I look back and see what I've done? Something. You do whatever the hell you want, just do it well, that's important. And don't do any damn thing that you will be ashamed of doing tomorrow, isn't it? What other people say, it doesn't matter, but you should not be ashamed of what you have done, isn't it so? Hello? This much you must keep, this much pride and freedom you must keep in your life. It doesn't matter, the whole world says you're wrong, but you are not ashamed of what you have done. That much you must always keep in your life. If that one thing, if you give up, I'm telling you, you'll live a very poor life. You may have everything, but you'll have nothing. The question is, will you do what you want to do, or will you do what is needed most right now in the world? If you are joyful by your own nature, what I want to do is not important. What is needed right now, you will do that with absolute devotion. So, if you can be devoted to anything that you do, what does it matter? What does it matter? You will do what is most needed, isn't it? You must do what's most needed, actually. I think somewhere else I said, see, if you're a fool, you will do something that you don't like to do. If you're an intelligent person, you will do what you love. But if you really want to be a genius in your life, you will do whatever is needed with absolute joy and involvement. It's no more about me.
To learn your own why, first of all, understand that a why is basically an origin story. It's where you come from. We are the products of our upbringing. You know, the experiences you had growing up make you who you are, make me who I am. Your why is fully formed by your mid to late teens, and it doesn't change for the rest of your life. You have only one why. You are who you are. Now, whether you're living in balance with that is a different conversation, whether you're making the decisions that are of high authenticity, and that's all that authenticity means. Authenticity means the things that I say and the things that I do reflect who I actually am. That's all it means. That's a different conversation. And so when you know your why, the ability to make those choices becomes a lot easier. You know, we've all had the feeling of flow and things like this, except it's a little bit like a roulette game. Like sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. It's like I've done the same thing 1,000 times, how come it doesn't feel good anymore? So here's a fun way you can learn your why. it's called the friends exercise. Go and do this with a best friend. Do not do this with a spouse. Do not do this with a sibling. Do not do this with a parent. It doesn't work. Best friend. Somebody who loves you, who will be there for you. They'll pick up the phone at 3:00 in the morning and you would do the same for them. And ask them this simple question. Why are we friends? And they're going to look at you like you're nuts, because the part of the brain that controls that deep feeling of love and trust doesn't control language. It's a difficult question to answer. And so they'll say, I don't know. Of course they know. They just don't have the words for it. And so you actually stop asking the question why, and you ask the question what. What specifically is it about me? Come on, what specifically is it about me that I know that you would be there for me no matter what? And they'll hem and they'll haw and they'll struggle, and you can't help them and you can't let anybody else help them. You have to let them go through the process. And they'll start describing you. I don't know, you're smart, you're loyal, I trust you, and you play devil's advocate. Good. That's the definition of a friend. You have that with lots of people. What specifically is it about me that I know you would be there for me no matter what? And again, they'll go through a few rounds of complaining and describing you, and eventually they'll quit and they'll start describing themselves. And this is what my friends said to me. They said, I don't know, Simon. All I know is that I can sit in a room with you. I don't even have to talk to you, and I feel inspired. And I got goosebumps. In fact, I'm getting them right now. It happens every time. Because what they did is they put the value that I have in the world into words, and I had the emotional response. And that's what will happen. Somebody will say something that you will either get goosebumps or you'll well up or something will happen. And that's when you know you've hit it. Because the thing that you give to the world, that you should be working to give to the world consistently, is the reason those people love you. It's the reason why you're not friends with everyone. And if you do this with multiple friends, the amazing thing is they will say very similar, if not the exact same thing, because that's the thing you give to the world. That is your why. It is the reason you get out of bed in the morning. It's a really fun exercise. With teams, it's slightly different. But even for companies, a why is still an origin story. Where the company came from, the founder's story is the why of the organization. For teams, it's a little different. In those cases, you want to tell specific stories that reflect why we love coming to work every day. Right? And by the way, you asked before, like, how do I communicate my why to other people? Just remember, I'm not smarter. I've just been doing this a lot longer. So I'm practiced, which is why I can sort of wax on about a vision or something like that. It's just because it's taken me many, many iterations to get it right. The easiest way to do it is to simply say to somebody, let me tell you why I love working here. Not like, love. Like is rational. I like my job. I like the people. I get paid well. I like my job. Love is emotional. It's like, the question is like, do you love your wife? Yes, I like her a lot. It's a different standard, right?
Yeah.
Right. Love is a higher standard. So when you talk about what you love, it's profoundly different. I'll give you a silly example, actually one that comes from the book, which I haven't thought about in quite a long time. Trying to communicate your ideas to someone, whether it's selling a product, selling yourself in an interview, or just in a meeting with people, just you want people to quote unquote buy your ideas, right? It's the same as dating. I mean, think about it. You sit across a table from somebody and you hope to make the sale. You hope to make the deal, right? That's what you want. So let's make a dating analogy. Let's call him Brian, right? And we send Brian out on a date. And he sits down at the table with this girl that he was set up with. And this is how he starts the date. He goes, I'm incredibly rich. I'm very successful. I'm on TV a lot, which is great because I'm quite good looking. I know a lot of famous people. And I have a beautiful house. You should come by sometime. Now the question is, how well did that date go? Instinctively, we all know that was crap, right? But think about how people sell their ideas or how companies sell themselves. It's like, we're a very, very successful company. You may have seen our advertising on TV. We're very good at what we do. We have beautiful offices. You should come by and see them sometime. Well, if we know the date was crap, why would we think that would work any better? The answer is, it doesn't, right? Now let's send Brian back out again. And this time we'll arm him with his why. And we'll say he doesn't know his why, but he can answer specific questions about love, right? He can give specific examples. So he sits down again and he says, you know, I absolutely love my work. Just the other day, just 3 days ago, one of my team members was struggling, and I had the opportunity to, I was walking down the hall and I was late for a meeting, but I thought, you know what, this is more important to me. And I sat down with them and helped them figure out a problem. And then I just went to my meeting and showed up late. And when I explained why I was late, everybody said, yeah, of course, you did the right thing. And I got to tell you, it is the most magical thing in the world to come to work every day in a place where I get to do that, and it's so appreciated. And the best thing about it was I made a lot of money because of it, and I got to meet a lot of famous people. I get to go on TV all the time, which is really great because I'm good looking, and I got to buy a beautiful house. You should come by sometime. All the same rational stuff is there, but how different did that feel? Yeah. Right? And so now the rational stuff is the proof, but it's not the reason to buy. So if you can tell a specific story of what you love, and it's a high bar, you have to love it. It's a way to attract people who love the same thing. And the best thing about it is it's a filter, because there are some people listening to that story and think that's cheesy. We're not going to do well together in business. So it's a fantastic filter that it attracts the right people and it repels the wrong people.
I think you should chase what energizes you. Everyone talks about passion, legacy, purpose, blah, 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 blah. The one word to pay attention to is energy.
I love that.
That's it. Let's simplify this.
Okay.
So whatever energizes you, naturally expands you, feels like possibility, is exciting to do. It may be scary. That doesn't matter. It has to do with how it makes you feel.
Right.
When you were in your 20s, money made you feel good. It expanded you. It energized you. Chasing the money, that was the game. That was your passion. That was your... There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. And I particularly want to say that to the women that are watching.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Because it is socialized into women not to chase success like that, not to go after the money. And so if what energizes you is amassing wealth, go for it. But and the reason why I say that is because people talk about the word passion or purpose.
Right.
And the truth is, it's not a person, place, or a thing. It's not. It is the feeling of being expanded and energized.
Right.
If you're pursuing your passion, it means that you wake up every day and are energized. Mm-hmm. So instead of trying to think, what's my purpose? What's my passion? What's my purpose? What's my passion? I don't know.
Yeah.
Instead of thinking like that, I want you instead to ask yourself, what could I do today that would energize me? What energizes me? If it's making money, figure out how to make money.
Right.
If it is making a difference, figure out how to make a difference. It could be in any single shape or form. But if it energizes you, that's what you need to follow. And what happens is that passion also, because it's energy, it dissipates over time. Because when you first start making money, it's f***ing thrilling.
Yeah.
But what happens is once you learn how to do something once, you can do it over and over again. And so it starts to become routine, which means it's no longer energizing.
Right.
Which is why every entrepreneur out there goes through the mode of chasing the money, and then you hit the money that you need to make, and then you're like, I'm not fulfilled. What's my purpose? I don't know what to do.
Yeah, I went through that.
I need to find the I did everybody does.
Yeah.
And it's because you were energized by the money, and now you're not.
Yeah.
Now you got to be energized by the next thing.
Yeah.
And for you, it's clearly service. It's clearly making a difference. It's empowering others. And so when I look back on my trajectory, the thing that energizes me is making people feel like they matter.
You know, human beings are, despite our own self-opinions, we're not that strong and we're not that smart. But in teams and groups, we're amazing. And so trying to solve your own life problems by yourself, I've got some really bad news. You can't. Which is why addiction exists. Because I can't solve these problems myself. I can't overcome the stress myself. So I'm going to drink, or I'm going to do something else that's harmful to myself, my family, and my relationships. As all addictions are. Whether you're addicted to your cell phone, addicted to alcohol, addicted to drugs, you're going to destroy your relationships. You're going to destroy yourself. And there is tremendous value, and it does take courage, you're right, for somebody who loves you to say, I got you, I'm here, let's do this together. Or for you to call a friend and say, I think I'm struggling, and I think I can't do this alone. Can you help me? It's humiliating, but it is perhaps the single greatest lesson that any human being can learn, which is to say, I don't know and I need help. And if you can learn that, and you can do it in the worst of times, you can do it all the time. You can do it with silly things. And for me, I mean, for those who know my work, I regularly call myself an idiot, and I do think of myself as an idiot because I have no problem saying, I don't know, can somebody who's smarter than me explain this to me? I'm under no false illusion that I have to present myself as the smartest person in the room, because I'm not, and where I'm good, I might know a sliver of something, but my goodness, everything else we're talking about, I know nothing. And I think being comfortable with asking for help and saying, I don't know, it turns out we're surrounded by people who want to take care of us and help us, but they don't, because they didn't think we needed it, because we were too busy presenting ourselves as perfect and having all the answers. So they just didn't. Oh. But they would if we just asked. And I have a small group of friends where we have a deal, and I have a couple of friends that are super senior, super high performing by all traditional definitions. And I remember the first time one of us called the other and said, I'm stuck, which is really difficult to do because you want to look smart and strong to people who you respect, and they're so smart and strong. And I have one of my dearest friends, he's in the military, he's a senior officer in the U.S. Air Force, it's active duty still. And I remember the first time he called me brother, which in the military is a big deal. You and I have colleagues and coworkers, they have brothers and sisters. And so they call each other brother and they call each other sister, and it's an amazing thing. And I remember the first time he said, all right, brother, I'll talk to you later. Or, hey, brother. And I was like, that means the relationship was different now, And he's a warrior. I mean, he's hardcore. He's an amazing human being. And when we get off the phone, he'll say, I love you, Or he'll text me and say, I miss you. Not just miss you, I miss you, which is way more vulnerable, And it's deeply human. And he and I are, we call each other and say, I'm struggling or I'm stuck. And sometimes it's business, I just need your opinion, but sometimes it's personal. Sometimes it's frustration, Can I talk to you? I'm so freaking frustrated. But to foster those relationships, and those relationships take a lot of work to get to. They don't just show up, and they do require risk. At some point you open up a little bit. But to have those kinds of friendships, I think, are absolutely essential to being what we would call a high-performance human being. I don't think you can be a high performance by yourself. I don't think it exists. And anybody who does they're either not as high performing as they think they are, or they are high performing, but at tremendous cost. They're lonely. They need pills to start the day. They have other issues. They'll have health issues later in life. I think if you choose to be quote unquote high performing by yourself, it comes at a cost that I think is not worth it.
And can I just applaud that message? Because I think, particularly for young people now, listening to podcasts, logging onto social media sites, Instagram, all these other things, we seem to laud the self-made success story, and everybody wants to tell us they did it on their own. I think it's so good to hear this.
I heard this amazing story from Steven Spielberg, where he said that he hears his name, he gets thank yous, like people thank him from the stage when they're receiving an Oscar, that he actually doesn't know and has never helped. But the people who he's actually helped don't thank him, because there's this fear that if I thank Steven Spielberg for helping me, that somehow it devalues the fact that I earned an Oscar, which of course is nonsense, it doesn't. But there's this deep-seated insecurity that I can't thank anybody or say that I got any help, that I'm the look how great I am. And the reality is not a single person in the world made it without advice from someone, a favor from someone, a door open from someone, advice from someone, a shoulder to cry on from someone, someone to vent to, at the end of a difficult day, anybody.
Maybe negative, like even, I don't know, people that cause problems in your life, bullies at school, they're all collaborators.
They're all collaborators.
Because they've built your resilience, your understanding of human nature. And nothing's a solo journey in this world.
And to thank people who really did thank you is, I think, humble. right? And anybody who presents themselves like they're the lone wolf that triumphed and won these awards and achieved this wealth and power and fortune or whatever it is, the joke is, we know you're lying. If you're a human being, I know you're a liar, right? So why not just come clean, and I'll actually think really highly of you.
There'll be people listening to this now that think, man, this guy's got it together. He understands himself, he understands the world, he understands business, understands leadership. When you found your why, does it take away the doubt and the fear and the bad days and the insecurities?
No, of course not. It helps me understand the times when things went well, why they went well. It helps me understand the times that things went badly, why they went badly. And it helps me make choices so that I put myself in a position of strength more often than not.
I had no idea what I wanted to do with my life, and no idea how college was going to help me figure it out. And here I was, spending all of the money my parents had saved their entire life. So I decided to drop out and trust that it would all work out okay. It was pretty scary at the time, but looking back, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. The minute I dropped out, I could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest me and begin dropping in on the ones that looked far more interesting. It wasn't all romantic. I didn't have a dorm room, so I slept on the floor in friends' rooms. I returned Coke bottles for the 5-cent deposits to buy food with. And I would walk the 7 miles across town every Sunday night to get one good meal a week at the Hare Krishna temple. I loved it. And much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on. Let me give you one example. Reed College at that time offered perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country. Throughout the campus, every poster, every label on every drawer was beautifully hand calligraphed. Because I had dropped out and didn't have to take the normal classes, I decided to take a calligraphy class to learn how to do this. I learned about serif and sans serif typefaces, about varying the amount of space between different letter combinations, about what makes great typography great. It was beautiful, historical, artistically subtle in a way that science can't capture, and I found it fascinating. None of this had even a hope of any practical application in my life. But 10 years later, when we were designing the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to me. And we designed it all into the Mac. It was the first computer with beautiful typography. If I had never dropped in on that single course in college, the Mac would have never had multiple typefaces or proportionally spaced fonts. And since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer would have them. If I had never dropped out, I would have never dropped in on that calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the wonderful typography that they do. Of course, it was impossible to connect the dots looking forward when I was in college, but it was very, very clear looking backwards 10 years later. Again, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, destiny, life, karma, whatever. Because believing that the dots will connect down the road will give you the confidence to follow your heart even when it leads you off the well-worn path, and that will make all the difference. I was lucky. I found what I loved to do early in life. Woz and I started Apple in my parents' garage when I was 20. We worked hard, and in 10 years, Apple had grown from just the two of us in a garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. We just released our finest creation, the Macintosh, a year earlier, and I just turned 30. And then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started? Well, as Apple grew, we hired someone who I thought was very talented to run the company with me. And for the first year or so, things went well. But then our visions of the future began to diverge, and eventually we had a falling out. When we did, our board of directors sided with him. And so at 30, I was out, and very publicly out. What had been the focus of my entire adult life was gone, and it was devastating. I really didn't know what to do for a few months. I felt that I had let the previous generation of entrepreneurs down, that I had dropped the baton as it was being passed to me. I met with David Packard and Bob Noyce and tried to apologize for screwing up so badly. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the valley. But something slowly began to dawn on me. I still loved what I did. The turn of events at Apple had not changed that one bit. I'd been rejected, but I was still in love. And so I decided to start over. I didn't see it then, but it turned out that getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. The heaviness of being successful was replaced by the lightness of being a beginner again, less sure about everything. It freed me to enter one of the most creative periods of my life. During the next 5 years, I started a company named Next, another company named Pixar, and fell in love with an amazing woman who would become my wife. Pixar went on to create the world's first computer animated feature film, Toy Story, and is now the most successful animation studio in the world. In a remarkable turn of events, Apple bought Next, and I returned to Apple, and the technology we developed at Next is at the heart of Apple's current renaissance. And Lorene and I have a wonderful family together. I'm pretty sure none of this would have happened if I hadn't been fired from Apple. It was awful tasting medicine, but I guess the patient needed it. Sometimes life's going to hit you in the head with a brick. Don't lose faith. I'm convinced that the only thing that kept me going was that I loved what I did. You've got to find what you love. And that is as true for work as it is for your lovers. Your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work. And the only way to do great work is to love what you do. If you haven't found it yet, keep looking and don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know when you find it. And like any great relationship, it just gets better and better as the years roll on. So keep looking, don't settle. When I was 17, I read a quote that went something like, "If you live each day as if it was your last, someday you'll most certainly be right." It made an impression on me, and since then, for the past 33 years, I've looked in the mirror every morning and asked myself, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I am about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something. Remembering that I'll be dead soon is the most important tool I've ever encountered to help me make the big choices in life. Because almost everything, all external expectations, all pride, all fear of embarrassment or failure, these things just fall away in the face of death, leaving only what is truly important. Remembering that you are going to die is the best way I know to avoid the trap of thinking you have something to lose. You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't be trapped by dogma, which is living with the results of other people's thinking. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary.
Passion is not an input. Passion is an output. Passion, we're all passionate. We're just not all passionate for the same things. And we will feel what we call passion when we are involved in something that is deeply personal to us, that is helping us advance some higher purpose or cause. Then when we go to work, what we experience is passion. But if you make us do something that we feel no personal connection to, that is not us helping advance any kind of bigger ideal, then what we feel is stress. Now, passionate people work many hours, they don't come home, they miss their families, they take business trips, they don't sleep, and yet it feels worth it. People who are stressed go on business trips, they miss their families, they work long hours, they don't sleep, but it doesn't feel worth it. Passion is an output, not an input. Like stress is an output, not an input. So you can't do what you're passionate about. You find something you believe in, and what you will experience is passion. So then it begs the question, how do I find what I believe in, right? I think society, especially our society, and especially for a younger generation, puts overwhelming pressure on us to have a vision. What's your vision? Or find your bliss, or all of these, they're all the same thing, right? And the problem is we're not all visionaries. It's unfair
It's an unfair standard. That's like telling everybody to be creative, but we're not all creative. Or everybody be good at math, but we're not all good at math. We're not all visionaries. Only a small percentage of our population are actually visionary. You don't have to have a vision. You have to find a vision, right? If you hear Martin Luther King say, I have a dream that one day little black children will hold hands on the playground with little white children, you go, that's what I want. You choose to follow Dr. King. When you hear the words of visionaries, and if they appeal to you on some visceral level, they give you goosebumps, they make you excited, they make you want to sacrifice, be a part of it, stand in line to hear them, pay money, whatever it is, follow that, make that your vision. Take it and say, that's my vision too. You can adopt someone else's vision and make it your own. That's what we call a following. Is we have taken the visionary's vision and we have chosen to follow that vision ourselves. We are followers. That's a good thing. There's no difference between the visionary and the follower. We both see ourselves in service to something bigger than ourselves. Whether you are the originator of that idea or not is irrelevant. What it does is fuel passion. What it does is fuel conviction. So we don't have to have a vision, but we do have to find one. And so read books, watch TED Talks, read articles, be in life. Watch videos, go out, seek, find, listen to leaders, corporate, political, whoever. And when something resonates with you, even if you don't know why, that then you can adopt. And you can take it upon yourself to use your own talents, your own gifts to help advance whatever that cause is.
Imagine in your mind's eye right now a world driven by our emerging future instead of being driven by the past. Instead of the world of war and hunger, imagine a world of passion, of beauty, of wellness and well-being. Imagine a world inspired by our highest potential instead of a current reality driven by our limitations and our past emotion set. Imagine a world where leadership is expressed from a limitless depth of being instead of from a sense of lack or never enoughness. Imagine leadership manifested from the true self and higher calling instead of a leadership manifested from the ego-made self who constantly feels threatened and restless. Imagine a world co-created from our intuitive future instead of a default world generated from our past paradigms of what is possible. Imagine a world where people know how to embrace their entire being. They are aware of their body, their pineal gland, their sixth sense, and have easy and habitual access to the field of conscious awareness and creative intelligence, in addition to the fields of human construct. Imagine all of it aligned. Imagine a world moved by the power of compassion instead of competition and greed and lack. Imagine a world enthused by our interconnectivity and not from the worship of our individual self. Imagine a world where leadership is not about the one person at the top, but is inclusive to all. Imagine a world led by leaders who are committed to peace and collaboration instead of power and ego. This world right now may sound utopic, yet this world also exists right now in this moment as a possibility in the field of conscious awareness. In the quantum field, it exists